Hey guys, Jake from State Fun. Today we're going to be working on a Gator 6x4. We're going to be working on the roof, try and get that implemented. And then around back we're going to install a hitch mounted winch. So as you can see, some modifications have already been done to the Gator. We've made a custom bent support for the roof and the windshield, and we've placed the windshield on that support. So this was done with a Harbor Freight tubing bender. The bends are terrible, and some of the spots actually needed to be cut and re-welded. Welds are terrible, but it holds. And it's bolted to the metal frame on front and rear on both sides. Supports the plexiglass windshield fairly nicely. The plexiglass has these supports, 2 on the sides and 2 on the top. It also has a rubber windshield gasket going around the edges to try and reduce the amount of wind that gets past it into the cabin. The plan is to get this diamond plate roof made up for the Gator, give us a little bit of rain protection, and then we've got a clear plastic curtain similar to what you see on the golf carts when they have a little plastic cabin. And we're going to work to kind of wrap that around the sides, make little slits for the doors and along the back, keep as much wind out and body heat in. We're also going to hook up a couple heated seats that will plug into a cigarette lighter that I will be installing probably somewhere in the middle here between the 2 seats, just for ease of access. So that's kind of the general items that have been completed on this so far. So go ahead and give you an idea of what we've already got done on the winch process. We've got the winch controller mounted up under the dash, kind of behind the steering column there. Got the wires ran to have a disconnect for the winch itself on the front here, and wires are ran all the way around here to the back as well. Back here to the rear, we've got a hitch receiver installed, and we've got the winch mounted on a hitch extension, so I could actually hook up a trailer or something behind if I wanted to. My thoughts process on this is maybe in the future I'll have a hitch mounted crane so I can use the winch wire to power a crane and lift things into the bed if I need to. Basically all we've got left to do in this portion of it is we've got a couple wires left here that need to be terminated and set up with another one of these quick connects so that I can plug it in and do our first test pull. Alright, so for the electrical connection here, we're just going to kind of loosely lay the wires out and get an idea of the rough length that we need to be able to connect it there. We'll probably zip tie these together to keep them nice and tight once we've got it connected. And I think that's probably a pretty good distance there. So we'll cut these off with a little extra slack here. Go ahead and strip these back a little bit. So these quick connects here, found them on Amazon. I actually kind of like them more than I thought I was going to. But they've got a little terminal here. Twist your wires up. And this 10 gauge stuff I'm actually going to fold over a little bit. Shove your wire up into the terminal, and you can either crimp it down or you can solder it down. Make sure you crimp it until your hands hurt. That's a technical reference. All of these terminals are actually the same, so it's not a matter of trying to determine which one's positive or negative or anything like that. Give it a nice little tug test there. And then these termination blocks do have a positive and negative on the block itself, so you know which side you should plug in depending upon how you connected your other ones. And they come with a nice little cap so that when they're not in use, you can have it plugged up. Make sure there's no water or anything that gets in there. But the connections on these, take your negative to the negative, and there's a little hook on the termination. And you point that towards the spring-loaded terminal on the block. Point it down towards that and press it in until it snaps over that. Forms a nice seal. Nice connection. Same thing with the positive. There you go. Now you've got a terminal connection. The cover here does have a little wire loop, so you can kind of zip tie it to the wires somewhere, however you want to, so that you have a nice little loop where you can plug that in. This is Aiden. He is 7 years old. He loves to hold your hand and make sure he's touching you at all times. You can hold his hand just like this for hours and he won't care. He'll love it. Every single minute of it. Won't you, bud? Good boy. And this here is Oliver. And they get jealous of each other. Oliver is 2 years old now. Looks a lot like Tucker. So we're going to work on trying to get some cup holders installed on the Gator. One thing it is severely lacking is cup holders. So we're kind of thinking maybe in this fender here, if we cut out a hole here and let these sit down into it, I can probably take an L bracket from the bottom side and support it underneath. Trying to gauge where it can go without hitting the cage, the roll cage with a drink cup. Kind of thinking it might sit out a little bit and may almost kind of sit on the corner of the fender well here too. So I'm going to get this marked out a little bit. Probably cut some scary holes into a fender and see if we can get a test fit done. This is all the eyeball specifications. Ooh. And that's moving on me. This does have a little bit of a outward bevel. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but that's the one I'm using. So I'm going to cut right within inside this line that I'm drawing here, and then we'll see how much I have to cut back afterwards. Good news is I think they still sell fenders for this, so if I totally mess it up, I'll just have to replace it. Doesn't that sound like fun? I believe what I'm going to try and do here is I'm going to use the plunger tool and create what's called a plunge cut. This could go terribly wrong, but could also work out. So let's give it a try. You ready? Now we have a very big hole. All right. Just like I was expecting and hoping, we do need to cut it out a little bit more to make it wide enough for the cup holder to sit down in the hole. I didn't want to make the first hole too big because then you can't put the material back. Let's see, how do I want to reduce or take more material away? I think I'm going to get the flap disc out and do it nice and smoothly. So I think I've gotten to the point where I'm fairly happy with the positioning of it. I know it looks a little bit funky, but it's not meant to be here. So functionality is much more of a requirement than visuality. So I'm going to figure out a way to mount some L brackets to the bottom of this thing and get it secured in place so that it's willing and able to hold our next big drink cans. So here's just a little bit of a different view of what the cup holder looks like from the different angles. It's fairly close to the side here. It is pretty much going to be sticking out of the fender, but I think it's going to be alright because it kind of lines up fairly well with the dash when looking at it from the side. In general, I think it'll do. The plan is to try and take an L bracket and see if we can get y'all up in here to see. Try and take an L bracket and attach it between the bottom of the plastic here and the side here. Metal frame, little corner bracket from Lowe's. Ought to handle that just fine. So now we've got that done, we just have to replicate it over here on this fender. Alright, now it's time to rinse and repeat. There we go. There's the second cup holder. Fairly close in line with the dash. Very close to the side of the dash here. Much closer than I was wanting, but I got a little bit carried away with the cutter tool. I think once we have these solidly mounted, they'll work good. I'm happy with that. Alright, so I got these two brackets made up here. They're going to go there by the window, or windshield. And they're just little pieces of L brackets that I bent further into more of an A frame instead of an L. And then I've drilled a couple pilot holes so that we can use the self-tappers to expand those holes and drill into the base below it. We're going to get these spray painted black, and then we'll get them installed once they dry. Now that we got the L brackets painted up, we're going to install them on the windshield. Came out pretty good. Got a few self-tapping screws here. We're just going to kind of press the windshield out to where it should be riding. And I've pre-drilled a couple holes so the self-tappers can expand. I'm not too worried about trying to be perfect with all that's going on. We'll kind of push the windshield, screw these self-tappers down. We'll see how well it holds. Overall, not bad. Kind of makes the windshield at least flat. I don't think those little L brackets will be seen very much anyways, so not too worried about it. Screw heads don't look great, but I think they'll be okay. Alright, so we got the winch about ready to test here. The basic plan is we're going to take the winch connection there, run it over to a tree right over here, just stretch the line out as far as it'll reach, and then we'll winch it back to the tree. The instructions say the first time that you run this to make sure you have at least a 500-pound load during the retraction time. So easiest way for us to do this here is with the vehicle we attached it to. That'll wrap it up for today, guys. We got the winch finalized. We got the cup holders mocked in. We'll be doing some corner brackets to finalize the installation on that later. We got the front brackets for the windshield installed, and some episode here in the future we'll be doing the roof and the sidewalls on the Gator here. We'll get her looking good and running good. So, as everyone else says, like, comment, subscribe, and y'all have a good one.